There is a very specific, very heavy sinking feeling that I think every single person listening to this right now recognizes instantly.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter who you are or where you live. It's that moment, maybe it's at 2 a.m. when you're staring at the ceiling, or maybe it's just a random Tuesday afternoon where you look back at a choice or maybe a missed chance and you just think, if only.
If only. Yeah, it's the universal language of regret. It's two words, but they carry a phenomenal amount of weight.
Exactly, it's heavy. And usually because it feels so heavy, we treat regret as this massive downer.
We do.
It's something to be avoided, suppressed, or just ignored because it's painful. We try to numb it out. But today, we are flipping that script completely. We're diving into a really fascinating stack of research that suggests regret isn't just a ghost haunting us. It's actually one of the most powerful tools we have for designing a better life.
It really is. And I think that reframe is, well, it's essential. If you look at the psychology, and we have some great papers in the stack today on behavioral science regret, it's essentially a feedback mechanism. A feedback mechanism.
Yeah, it's your brain trying to teach you something. But most of us just feel the sting without learning the lesson. We treat it like an injury rather than information.
And there is a lot of stinging going on. I was looking at the data in our source stack, and there's this one statistic that it floored me.
Oh, I think I know the one you're talking about.
Research suggests that people regret nearly 1/3 of the decisions they make over the course of a single week.
1/3. That is a massive number when you really break it down.
It is. We want to help you make decisions today that you won't lose sleep over in 10 years. We want to future-proof your happiness in a way.
And to do that, we have to start with a concept that feels a bit counterintuitive. I think this is the hook that really draws people into this research.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because I think most people, if you stopped them on the street and asked, what do you regret?
Yeah.
They would tell you about the stupid things they did.
Oh, for sure.
The bad haircut, the impulse purchase of that car that breaks down, the angry text message sent at 2:70 a.m.
Right. And in the short term, that is entirely true. We do feel a sharp, visceral pang of regret when we make a mistake, an action that goes wrong. It's embarrassing. It's frustrating. But the data shows something fascinating when you zoom out.
Okay.
When you look at long-term regret, the stuff that haunts people for years or decades, the stuff that really shapes a life narrative, it is overwhelmingly caused by inaction.
It's not what you did, it's what you didn't do.
It's precisely. It's the business you didn't start because you were scared of losing your steady paycheck. The person you didn't ask out because you didn't want to be rejected.
The trip you didn't take because the timing wasn't perfect.
Exactly. The research is clear. Over time, the sting of a wrong action fades because we usually fix it or learn from it. You can sell the bad car. You can apologize for the text.
But the inaction, the road not taken, remains an infinite possibility of what if.
An infinite nagging possibility.
That is profound. It's the what ifs.
Yeah.
They get you. It's like the psychological immune system is pretty good at healing a scrape, but it doesn't know what to do with a phantom limb.
That is a perfect analogy, a really perfect one.
So here is our roadmap for this deep dive. We are going to start by dissecting the anatomy of regret, why we feel it, and why it seems to be getting worse in the modern world.
Yep.
Then we're going to look at the heavy hitters, the top 5 regrets of the dying.
That is some of the most moving and practical research we have. It's heavy, for sure, but it's incredibly illuminating.
Absolutely. And then we're going to get tactical. We'll cover specific decision-making frameworks to future-proof your life. And finally, we'll talk about how to handle the regrets you're already carrying around.
Sounds like a plan.
So let's jump into section 1, the anatomy of regret.
Let's do it.
So let's start by defining the beast. According to the sources, what actually is regret? Is it just sadness? Is it just disappointment?
Well, it's more complex than simple sadness. The sources define regret as a negative cognitive and emotional state that involves blaming ourselves for a bad outcome.
Blaming ourselves, that's a key part.
It is. But, and this is key, it serves a functional purpose. It's not just there to torture us.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Exactly. It's designed to motivate change. Think about physical pain. If you didn't feel bad about touching a hot stove, you'd burn your hand again.
Right. You just keep doing it.
You need the pain to learn the boundary. Regret is the emotional equivalent of that physical pain. It's your brain trying to influence your future decisions by tagging a past decision with a negative marker. However, the sources make a critical distinction between productive regret and unproductive rumination.
Okay, breaks that down for me. Because I feel like I do a lot of the second one.
Well, most of us do. Productive regret looks like this. I messed up that presentation because I didn't prepare. I felt terrible while I was up there. Next time, I will start 2 days early.
So you learned. You changed the behavior.
Right. The pain served a purpose. It had a utility. Unproductive rumination, on the other hand, is I'm an idiot. I always mess up. Why did I say that? Everyone probably thinks I'm incompetent.
It's a spiral.
It's a spiral. It's dwelling on the past without extracting a lesson for the future. It's just swimming in the shame. One moves you forward, the other keeps you stuck in the mud.
That makes total sense. We need to turn the regret into data, not just emotional baggage. But here is something else that came up in the research that I found really interesting.
What's that?
It feels like we are living in a modern regret factory. Like, it's harder to avoid regret today than it was 50 years ago. Why is that?
It comes down to what psychologists call the paradox of choice.
Oh, I love this concept. It explains my anxiety in the grocery store's cereal aisle.
It's the cereal aisle applied to your entire life. It's the idea that while we think having more options is better, more freedom, right? It actually increases anxiety and regret.
More choice equals more stress.
In many cases, yes. One of our sources uses a great comparison. Think about choosing a college. In the past, or in certain places with limited options, the source mentions the former Yugoslavia as an example, you might have had one or two choices for university.
Not a lot to agonize over.
Exactly. You went, you studied, you moved on. You didn't sit there thinking, oh, if only I had gone to the other one because there wasn't really another one. You just lived your life.
Ignorance of alternatives was a kind of bliss.
It really was. But today, in the U.S. alone, there are something like 4,000 degree-granting colleges. When you pick one, you are explicitly rejecting 3,999 others. This explosion of choice creates a massive breeding ground for regret because it's so easy to imagine that one of those other 3,999 options would have been perfect.
It's the FOMO of life choices. And the sources also mention perfectionism playing a role here, right?
Yes, significantly. The research indicates rising levels of perfectionism since the late 1980s across the US, Canada, and the UK.
So it's a documented trend.
A very clear one. We have this pressure, often amplified by social media, that every choice must be optimal. We don't just want a good job, we want the perfect career that fulfills our soul and pays well.
We don't just want a nice partner. We want a soulmate who checks every box.
Exactly. And when the bar is perfection, regret is inevitable because reality is rarely perfect.
That is a recipe for disaster. If you demand perfection, you will always be disappointed. And it ties back to that action versus inaction thing we mentioned in the intro.
It really does.
We are so afraid of making the imperfect choice, the wrong action, that we freeze.
That's the action bias paralysis. We're often afraid to try and fail. But again, let's look at the timeline. The sources are very specific here. In the short term, you might regret a mistake. You might feel stupid for a week.
Right.
But over time, we're talking 10 years plus, you are haunted by the things you didn't do.
There's a quote in the source stack from Mark Twain that sums this up perfectly. I have it right here. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did.
It's a classic for a reason. And the data backs them up. When researchers ask people what they regret most in life, they don't say, I regret trying to start that business and losing some money.
No.
They usually say, I regret never trying. They regret the education they didn't pursue, the romance they didn't chase, the career moves they didn't make.
It seems like the brain can rationalize a mistake. I learned from it, but it can't rationalize a void.
Exactly. A mistake is data. A void is just a void.
So the takeaway from the anatomy section is, regret is a signal. The modern world is designed to make us feel it more often due to endless choice, and the biggest danger isn't screwing up. It's doing nothing.
Spot on.
All right, let's move to section 2. This is, in my opinion, the emotional core of this entire deep dive. We are talking about the Big Five.
This comes from the incredible work of Bronnie Ware. She was a palliative care nurse, which means she spent years caring for patients in the last 12 weeks of their lives.
Talk about a high-stakes environment for gathering data. There is no more posturing at that point.
Truly, the social mask drops. She listened to their reflections, their heartbreaks, and their wisdom, and she realized that the same 5 things kept coming up over and over again.
Wow.
These are the top 5 regrets of the dying.
Let's go through them because I think these act as a mirror for us. We can look at these and see if we are currently building one of these regrets right now.
That's the goal. We want to catch them while there is still time to change the trajectory.
Okay, regret #1. This is the most common one cited in the research. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me.
The authenticity regret. This is the big one. It's the most pervasive.
It hits hard. What does this actually look like in practice? Because I think we all like to believe we are authentic.
Well, it's insidious. It's the trap of living by a script you didn't write. Maybe you became a lawyer because your parents wanted you to, even though you secretly wanted to be an artist.
Or maybe you stayed in a hometown you hated because you felt obligated to your family.
Exactly. It's prioritizing societal pressure or family expectations over your own values, your own internal compass.
And I think the key word there is courage. It takes courage to disappoint people.
It does. It requires being willing to be misunderstood. And the tragedy here is that people get to the end of their lives and realize that their success, the big house, the title, the reputation, was meaningless because it was someone else's definition of success.
It wasn't theirs.
It wasn't theirs.
That is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
To win a game you didn't even want to play.
That's it, exactly. The fix, according to the sources, is clearly knowing your values. You cannot live authentically if you haven't actually sat down and defined what success looks like for you.
Not for your parents, not for Instagram. For you.
Right. If you don't define it, society will define it for you. And it probably won't be a good fit.
We're going to talk more about how to do that values audit later, but let's move to regret, #2. This one hits home for a lot of people in our hustle culture. I wish I didn't work so hard.
Bronnie Ware noted that this was found in almost every male patient she nursed, though today, as work dynamics have shifted, I think we can say it applies to everyone. This is the work trap.
I feel like we all know this, but we keep doing it. We were busy as a badge of honor.
We do. But it's a regret about misallocation of a finite resource, time. It's prioritizing the career, the promotion, the grind over personal happiness and relationships.
And what did the patients say about it?
They realized they missed their children's youth and their partner's companionship. They traded irrecoverable time for money or status, and in the end, the deal looked like a scam.
And the fix here isn't necessarily don't work, right? We have bills. We have to eat.
Right. The sources aren't saying quit your job and live in a van unless that's your authentic value.
Right.
They are emphasizing conscious allocation, seeking balance, or at least boundaries. It's about understanding that work is a rubber ball. If you drop it, if you miss a deadline, or even lose a job, it will bounce back.
You can recover.
You can recover. But family, health, and friends are glass balls. If you drop them, they shatter. They are often marked irrevocably.
Oof. That's a powerful image. The glass balls versus the rubber balls.
It really is.
Okay, regret #3. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings.
This is about emotional suppression.
Keeping the stiff upper lip, being the stoic one.
Exactly. Many people suppress their feelings to keep the peace. They didn't want to rock the boat. They swallowed their anger or their sadness or even their love.
And what was the result of that?
As a result, they settled for a mediocre existence and never became who they were truly capable of becoming. And the sources note something else. Many developed illnesses relating to the bitterness and resentment they carried.
So holding it in literally made them sick.
That's what the observation suggests.
Yeah.
The body keeps the score. The fix is speaking your truth respectfully, not waiting for the perfect time to say, I love you, or I was hurt by that.
Just saying it.
Just saying it. The pain of a difficult conversation is finite. The regret of silence is infinite.
Regret, #4, is one that I think becomes more relevant the older you get. I wish I'd stayed in touch with friends.
This is the connection regret. It's fascinating because it's rarely about a big fight or a dramatic falling out.
No, it's about the slow drift.
The slow drift, life gets busy, you have kids, you have the job see regret, #2, and you think, oh, I'll call them next week.
And next week becomes next month. And suddenly, it's been 20 years.
Exactly. The dying patients realize that in the end, love and relationships are all that matter. Money and status fall away completely when you are facing the end. You want your people.
The fix here seems simple but hard to execute. Prioritize relationships. Treat them like a job. Schedule them.
You have to. You have to be proactive. Friendships don't maintain themselves, especially in adulthood. You have to put in the reps.
And finally, regret #5. This one surprised me the most when I first read it.
It's a subtle one.
I wish I had let myself be happier.
Yes. Let myself. That is the key phrase.
It implies that happiness is a choice or a permission we give ourselves.
That's the realization. Many people did not realize until the end that happiness is a choice. They stayed stuck in old patterns and habits. The so-called comfort of familiarity overflowed into their emotions and their physical lives.
They were just going through the motions.
Yes, fear of change had them pretending to others and to themselves that they were content, but deep down they longed to laugh properly and have silliness in their life again.
They took life too seriously. They worried about what the neighbors thought.
Exactly. The fix is breaking out of those patterns, allowing yourself to be silly, to be joyful, regardless of what people think. It's about realizing that you don't have to wait for external circumstances to be perfect, to be happy.
Those are heavy, but they are also a cheat sheet. We have the answers to the test right there.
That's the beauty of it. We don't have to wait until we are dying to realize this. We can look at that list today, right now, and say, am I working too hard? Have I called my friend? Am I being true to myself?
So let's pivot to section 3, strategies for decision making. We've seen the ghosts of regrets past. Now let's talk about the prevention layer.
Yes.
How do we make a decision today that we won't regret tomorrow?
We need frameworks. We can't just rely on our gut feeling in the moment because our gut is often driven by immediate fear or the desire for comfort.
And comfort is usually the enemy of growth.
Almost always. So the first strategy in the stack is something called the deathbed perspective, which sounds grim given what we just talked about, but tell us how it works as a decision tool.
Right. How do we use it?
It's essentially fast-forwarding your life. When you are facing a difficult choice, should I take this new job? Should I move to a new city? Should I break up with this person? You project yourself to the end of your life.
You imagine you're there.
And you ask a simple question. Will I regret not trying this?
It cuts through the noise.
It really does. It helps distinguish between short-term discomfort and long-term existential regret. For example, if you want to start a podcast,
Yeah.
your short-term fear is, what if people laugh at me? What if I look stupid? What if I get a bad review? That's fear of failure.
Which feels huge in the moment.
It feels massive, but if you use the deathbed perspective, you realize the long-term regret is, I will always wonder what would have happened if I tried. Usually the fear of the what if is much heavier in the long run than the fear of temporary embarrassment.
That distinction is crucial. Short-term fear versus long-term regret.
Exactly. Another framework mentioned in the sources is taking calculated risks.
Calculated being the operative word. We aren't saying go gamble your life savings.
No, absolutely not. But the sources advise that when the potential reward aligns with your values, there's that word again, you have to leap.
And fear is what stops us.
Fear often paralyzes action, but as we discussed, failure is usually less painful than the lingering question of what might have been. A calculated risk is one where you can survive the failure, but the success would change your life.
Okay, that's a good definition.
You have a safety net, but you're still jumping.
There is another trap that I think keeps people in bad situations for way too long. The sunk cost fallacy. This is a big one in economics, but it applies to life too.
This is a huge source of regret. The sunk cost fallacy is the tendency to continue doing something just because you've already invested time, money, or effort into it, even if it's no longer serving you.
It's the, I've already spent 4 years in medical school, I hate it, but I can't quit now mentality.
Exactly. Or I've been in this relationship for 5 years, it's toxic, but I don't want to throw those 5 years away.
But the reality is those years are already gone.
That is the hard truth. You can't get them back. But spending more time on the wrong path is just compounding the tragedy.
So what's the advice?
The expert advice here is brutal but necessary. Pivot when alignment fades. The time you spent is tuition. You learned what you don't want. Now move on.
So living authentically sometimes means quitting.
Absolutely. Quitting is often an act of courage. It takes guts to say this isn't working, especially when you've put a lot into it.
I love that. One more strategy here regarding decision-making. Avoiding overthinking. Because I feel like some people listening might be thinking, okay, I need to minimize regret, so I need to analyze every variable perfectly. I need to spreadsheet my life.
And that backfires completely. That leads to the paralysis we talked about. The sources mention a very liberating concept. Good enough is better than perfect.
Ah, yes.
Psychologists call this satisficing versus maximizing.
The satisficer approach.
Yes. A maximizer tries to check every single option to find the absolute best one. A satisficer knows what they need, finds an option that meets those needs, and takes it.
And which one is happier?
The research shows satisficers are happier, hands down. Trust your instincts, make the decision confidently with the information you have. The sources suggest that once you make a decision, you should commit to it.
Don't second guess.
Right. Second guessing after the fact is a primary cause of regret. Do your homework, make the call, and then don't look back. Close the door. Own the choice.
This transitions perfectly into section 4, Because to make these good decisions and to take these risks, you need a compass. We kept mentioning authenticity and values.
Hmm.
But let's be real. How do we actually figure out what is true to us? We are so bombarded with other people's opinions.
It's the million-dollar question. In the authenticity deep dive, the sources suggest that you can't just guess your values, you have to define them. You have to go digging.
Okay, what are the practical steps?
By asking the right questions. The sources suggest reflection. Ask yourself, what are the things you would do even if you weren't paid? What are the activities that make you lose track of time?
The flow state stuff.
Exactly. Or ask, what are the times in your life you felt most proud? And not when you were praised by a teacher or a boss, but when you felt proud of yourself.
The moments that felt right in your bones.
Exactly. Those moments usually point to your core values. Maybe it was helping someone. Maybe it was creating something. Maybe it was solving a complex problem.
And once you know those values, you have to defend them.
That leads to setting boundaries. This is crucial. You cannot live a life true to yourself if you are a people pleaser. The sources emphasize the importance of saying no.
Saying no to others is saying yes to yourself.
Precisely. If you value family time, but you say yes to every extra project at work because you want to be liked, you are generating regret. You are trading a value, your family, for a fear, the fear of not being liked.
That is a bad trade every time.
That connects back to the sunk cost connection, too. Sometimes living authentically means disappointing people who are used to the old you.
That's a great point. If you start setting boundaries, people might get upset. You used to be so available.
Right. And that friction is the price of authenticity. And the sources suggest living with intention. This means you aren't just reacting to emails and phone calls. You are driving the car.
You're being proactive, not reactive.
Yes. They recommend life audits, right?
Yes, regular reflection. The sources recommend journaling or periodic life audits to ensure you are still on the path you want to be on.
Because ships drift.
They do. If you don't check the compass, the wind will push you off course.
I like the idea of a life audit. Maybe every birthday or every new year, just sitting down and checking the compass.
Or even simpler, a weekly review. Did I live according to my values this week? It keeps the drift from becoming a disaster.
That's a great practical tip.
Okay, let's move to section 5, relationships and emotional hygiene. I like that term, emotional hygiene.
Me too.
We brush our teeth, but we rarely brush our relationship.
And they decay just like teeth if we don't.
We talked about the regret of losing touch. What is the strategy here? The sources seem to have a sense of urgency.
The urgency of now. That is the headline. Don't wait for the perfect time.
Because there is no perfect time.
Never. If you want to reconnect with a friend, send the text today, right now. If you need to have a difficult conversation with a partner, do it tonight.
Don't put it off.
The sources are clear. The pain of a difficult conversation is finite. The pain of regret from silence, from words left unsaid, is infinite.
That applies to the good stuff too, not just the hard stuff.
Yes, expressing appreciation. We often assume people know we love them. We assume our friends know they matter. We think, oh, they know I care.
Do they? Really?
Probably not as much as you think. The sources say, tell them, explicitly, you matter to me. I appreciate what you did.
It's not cheesy, it's necessary.
It reinforces the bond, and selfishly, it ensures that if something happens to them tomorrow, and life is fragile, you won't have the regret of unspoken words.
But what about when things are broken? The sources talk about forgiveness and amends.
This is huge for minimizing regret. Holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Wow.
It harms the holder more than the offender.
So forgiveness is selfish, in a good way.
It's self-preservation. It's putting down a heavy bag you've been carrying. And on the flip side, if you have hurt someone, apologize. Seek amends.
Even if they don't accept it.
Even then, the sources note that apologizing brings closure and peace of mind to you. You cleaned your side of the street, you did what you could.
And that eliminates the I should have apologized regret.
Precisely.
That leads us really well into section 6. Because I know there are people listening to this who are thinking, okay, great advice for the future, but what about the mess I've already made?
What if I already have regrets?
Yeah, I mean, we all do. I have them. You have them. So how do we manage the regrets we are currently carrying? The sources call this resilience.
The first step is self-compassion. This is non-negotiable.
This is hard for people. We are our own worst critics.
We are. But the sources advise forgiving yourself. You have to acknowledge a simple truth. You did the best you could with the information you had at the time.
That's a big one. With the information I had at the time.
Exactly. You are judging your past self with your present wisdom. That is unfair. It's like being mad at a 5-year-old for not knowing algebra.
You didn't know then what you know now.
Exactly. Maybe you were immature. Maybe you were traumatized. Maybe you just didn't have the tools.
But cut yourself some slack.
Yes. Self-criticism amplifies regret. Kindness reduces it.
Then there is cognitive reframing. We touched on this with productive regret.
Right. This is viewing mistakes as learning opportunities rather than failures. It's the silver linings approach. Okay, you took the wrong job and it was a miserable year.
But was it a waste?
Not if you learned from it. Maybe you learned a new skill. Maybe you learned exactly what you don't want in a boss.
Maybe you met a colleague who became a lifelong friend.
Exactly. If you can find the growth that came from the difficult experience, you transform the regret into a lesson. It ceases to be just pain. It becomes tuition. You paid for an education.
I like that.
Yeah.
Tuition. And finally, the sources talk about mindfulness, staying present.
Regret lives in the past. Anxiety lives in the future. Peace is in the present. The expert advice is to stay in the now.
How does that help with regret?
Because when you are fully engaged in the present moment, tasting your coffee, listening to your friend, doing your work, you aren't ruminating on 1998.
You're not feeding the beast.
You're not feeding it with your attention. It reduces the power of past regrets. And tied to that is cultivating gratitude for what remains.
Yeah. Yes.
Instead of focusing on what was lost, the relationship that ended, the money lost focus on what you still have. Gratitude shifts the lens from scarcity to abundance.
This has been a journey. We've gone from the anatomy of regret to the deathbed and back to the present moment. Let's wrap this up in our outro with a summary of the key takeaways.
If we boil down all these sources, the nurses, the psychologists, the philosophers, it comes down to a few core pillars.
Pillar 1, action is better than inaction.
Don't let the fear of making a mistake stop you from moving. The regrets of inaction are the ones that stick.
Pillar 2, authenticity is the best defense against regret.
Know your values. Live your script, not your parents' or society's.
Pillar 3, relationships matter more than work.
Every time. Prioritize connection. Express your feelings. Don't let the glass balls drop.
And Pillar 4, self-compassion is the cure for past mistakes.
Be kind to yourself. Learn the lesson. Forgive the student.
Now, we promise to leave you with a final provocative thought, something to mull over. We talked about the deathbed perspective, but let's flip it to a life perspective.
This is a question derived from that perspective, but applied to right now. I want you to ask yourself this.
If you knew you couldn't fail, but more importantly, if you knew you wouldn't be judged by anyone else, what choice would you make today?
Think about that. How much of your hesitation is fear of failure, and how much is fear of judgment? Remove those two variables. What is left?
That thing that is left,
Yeah.
that is your authentic path.
Identify one area where you are living for others or holding back out of fear, and take one small step toward reclaiming it. Just one.
Call the friend, write the page, book the ticket, say the words.
Future you is watching, and they are rooting for you.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.